Welcome back to the REI Hot Seat. I'm Andrew Hines, sitting here with resident realtor Jacob Campagnaro. Jake, welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, so today we're going to go over the quintessential sixplex in the GTA. So You and I both had one in mind, but we also just kind of wanted to speak in generalities because a lot of times people see these sixplexes come up or in that range in, decent locations. They're old, they might need a touch of work, but they're kind of purpose built.
Yeah.
And the numbers are hard to make them work.
That's it, right? So this is a great topic. It's things that I speak about with clients all the time.
Yeah.
There's these beautiful, great properties to add to your portfolio, right? So they're the flat roof, usually 2 to 3 stories. 6 units, concrete, right?
And I can think of one actually, a friend of mine actually just sold not too long ago. I think he sold it for almost $2 million, sixplex.
Right. And people see the value in these, and that's why they are selling for those numbers, right? But I get clients that always talk to me and say, hey, Jake, what do you think of these, right? And they'll send me 2 or 3 of them, right? And I thought, let's do an episode which we break down any of them, right? Okay. Because they all kind of work out to the same.
So we'll just do like a hypothetical. If there was one in Burlington that was available, what would we be looking at? Like say it was in a decent neighborhood, like an A neighborhood or an A or a B. When I think A neighborhood, I think like A residential. But I guess when we're talking multifamily, when we say A neighborhood, we're thinking an A neighborhood for a multifamily.
Right.
Yeah.
Which could be rental rates, rental demand, right? Work, distance
close to
just
things.
Shopping. And
if you think about cities like Hamilton, I'd leave out of this, but cities like Burlington, Oakville, if you can find sixplexes, eightplexes, whatever.
Yeah, and I'd say Burlington, Oakville, you're looking at like A+. Right?
Yeah, those are
A+ markets. Downtown Toronto, obviously very different animal, but again, A+ market. But let's talk Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo, Guelph,
those are A.
Burlington.
Yeah, all A+ markets.
These are all markets where people would love to own and invest.
Yeah.
Right. And these buildings come up every so often.
And sometimes they sit
usually owned by like a little old Italian guy that's, mowed the lawn himself and moved the snow, right? And they're in great shape, but the rents are terrible. Right?
Yeah,
the rents
have been left for ages,
correct.
So then you got to turn them over.
Or not turn them over, right?
Or leave it. Yeah,
and that could be all part of the topic today.
Okay, so why don't we just start with your initial take on who that type of product would work for? Like if you see an ideal buyer for one of those types where, an old Italian guy owned it for many years and he didn't increase the rents and it worked for him, but the price he wants, it's not going to work for a buyer potentially.
Yeah, and I'll just back up and kind of break down the price. Like why are we saying these are overpriced or underpriced or any price? There's 2 factors we got to look at, right? Obviously the NOI and the debt service, and that in today's market's even more difficult than it was 6 months ago.
Well, we just had another 0.5 point increase yesterday.
Yeah.
So keeping this in mind, let's work out what the rent would be sort of in an average scenario, and then we can adjust that to a market rent scenario. Yeah. So we'll play sensitivity on the rental figure, but renting rates, like if you're going to pick up one of those,
we're usually looking at $925 to about $1,100 a door.
So we'll call it
1,000, maybe 1,000 on average.
Yeah, 1,000 times 6. So maybe you're getting $6,000 on the building. And what might you see something like this right now in today's market for?
Anywhere from 1.7 to 2 million.
Okay, and we'll come back to that.
Is what we see these in those markets going for.
And like ballpark tax figure or even a range that you might see. I know every city's a little different.
Yeah, I'll pull up some data here. So property tax, let's say again in one of those markets, Burlington, Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo, we'll ballpark it at $7,200 to $8,000.
Okay, so let's say $7,500.
$7,500 to $8,000, right? I think that's a great.
And it's going to vary depending on the city. Some cities have really high taxes relative, and some have low. But we'll just use kind of a standard example. I'm going to throw in a 5% maintenance there. I think that generally works out. Well, wouldn't we normally want like $750 a door or something like that?
Yeah, so that's kind of CMHC industry standard, right? $750 a door. And then Andrew, when you do this, are you going to also add a line for snow removal and landscaping, or do you usually encompass that in your maintenance?
No, it's separate.
Right.
Yeah, snow removal and landscaping on something like this, where I know we're jumping ahead, but average property, let's figure you're going to spend at least $1,500 to $2,000 for the year. Or you think?
Yeah, I usually throw it around like $3,000.
Okay,
$3,000. If you break it down, where are you going to be? You're going to be like $30 a cut.
Well, I think the $3,000, then you could probably even get some of your garbage taken care of in that price. Depends on who, like if you hire somebody local, like some people get crazy deals on that, but you're right. Like not every city are you going to get a crazy good deal.
Well, there's 2 ways you can look at it, right? So $3,000 for me is kind of like, okay, landscaping, snow removal, and like hallway cleaning. Get somebody in, they'll clean the hallways, just mop the floors. But that also, all 3 of those could also just be a tenant in the building.
Right. See, and that's where the opportunity to save is. And that's probably one of the strategies we could talk about how you make these deals work is rather than hire the expensive landscaping company, you hire a local kid that lives 3 doors down, or one of your tenants. Rather than for your snow, you build it into one of the leases. Oh, you're going to clear the front walkway and the back walkway. And now all of a sudden a deal that didn't work, and none of this is advice, by the way, these are ideas. If you're going to make a deal work, maybe a deal that didn't work now starts to look like it might work.
Looks a little better, Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then management on something like this, I have 5% as a standard, but that's maybe not necessarily needed. It depends on who's buying it.
Exactly, right? And so we have managers who can do 4%, right?
But then they'll want
But that's going to be a la
fees.
carte kind of thing, right?
They're going to want leasing fees as well.
Correct. Leasing fees, inspection fees.
So by the time you do everything, you're like more like a 6%.
I'd say that's very safe. Yeah.
And then hot water rentals. I feel like a lot of these older buildings are going to have an own boiler.
They usually have own boiler, owned hot water.
Yeah.
And again, this is super ballpark. And then we're looking at property insurance.
Yeah, property insurance, I just threw $3,000 in.
It's a little low. I've seen
think?
Insurance creep up recently.
So what do you think? And we're talking like the brick build, 2 units per floor, walk up, purpose built sixplex.
Yeah, I've seen it anywhere from 4 to 6.
4 to 6. Okay, so we'll go with 5 then.
And that's more recent, right? We've seen those insurance fees come up and up and up.
Keep in mind, insurance is not apples to apples. Not everybody takes the full replacement value. Some people take the declining coverage, where the older the building is, the less you're covered. It's odd to me that that's even a thing, but it is. So we've got all this in here.
You got utilities.
Oh,
like
yes,
gas
utilities.
And hydro, right?
Yeah, so utilities in terms of the electric is probably separated on these buildings.
Yeah, usually they are, right? Separately metered.
So you're going to have 1 meter of electric for the building that's going to be like the hallways.
Yep.
So that might be like $800 a year or something like that.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
And then you're going to have gas for the building, probably $250 a month times 12. Yep. Is it that much?
It varies, right?
Yeah, it'll vary. It'll be high in your winter.
Electric hot water or gas hot water, right? Boiler or electric baseboard.
I think most of these are going to end up being boilers.
They mostly are.
Gas boilers.
Yeah.
And then we need to include water. So water, I think you're another $250 a month times 12.
About $2,500 a year.
I'd say I'm coming up with $6,800 for utilities for the year.
Yep.
I think that's a reasonable ballpark to be in. Okay, so now let's work out a purchase price on these. As I mentioned, a friend of mine just sold one in Burlington. I think he was between 1.8 and 2.
Yeah.
Let's just even go at 1.8. That's a 2.2 cap.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Andrew, like these are the things we see, right? Like these are the numbers that pop up in some of these markets, right? Sometimes better, sometimes worse.
Yeah. Okay. So let's look at how much money would you have to put down to make something like that even work?
Yeah.
And this is only on purchase, right? There are things that can be done. Turnovers do happen. But first off, we'll sub in 25 years as being a commercial mortgage. I guess you could really still do one of these with RBC as a residential.
You could do that angle, or you could even look at a CMHC.
The CMHC,
right? Going for a bit more.
But now we're going to be in like the 5.75 to 6.
CMHC. So we just put a deal together. CMHC. It was 5.25.
Yeah. So I'm saying if we're not CMHC,
if we're not CMHC, we're going to be over 6. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to be
you
like
almost have to go CMHC these days, right now, right?
Say we're 6.25 to start. I know that's crazy. Okay, so if we're 6.25, knowing that the bank is going to want to see DCR of at least 1.2, right now we're at 0.4, and that's at 63%. So we'd be going down to like 25% financing, even lower.
Yeah.
And this is nothing new though. Like if you think about it, like we've looked at how many deals, the whole idea of a BRRRR, going back 8 months ago, before everything started falling, was you had to go in and put a little bit of work in, get the income up so that it would justify your higher mortgage amount. Well, in this case, it's not really any different. You may have to do some things to increase the income.
Yeah.
So,
and these are things where not all of these deals are going to work out, but they still do sell. Like people still buy these things, and maybe it's a slight discount, maybe it's exactly the asking price, but there's things like LP structures, right? You look at things where you can hold this building a little longer.
Well, I mean, if you think in the long run, and I mean, long run 10 plus years, I think that, assuming a 2% appreciation rate will become a safe assumption again. I mean, we know inflation had not gone anywhere. So if you think about that, there probably is a way to make it work. I mean, obviously looking at these numbers, and if you're coming in with 80% down, it doesn't look so great. You're like 1.47 in the deal. And
and these are kind of fictitious numbers.
Yeah, this is just an idea of your stereotypical sixplex that you'll see in one of these cities. And it's a good thing to discuss because a lot of people, as you were mentioning when we were off camera, is like you get a lot of this type of deal just kind of thrown at you. Somebody shoots you a listing. Hey, what do you think about this one?
Yeah. And then, I don't always want to be the bad guy and be like, hey, not going to work. But for the certain buyer, it does work, right? Like you don't always have to be a cash buyer, because that's the answer I don't like, right? When it's like, okay, well, how do you make this work? Well, you got to have cash.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, that's the simplest solution. You have to have cash.
Well, I mean, the obvious thing to take a look at, and I said we would perform sensitivity on rents, is what can be done with rents.
Yeah.
And I think that in most of these buildings, it's literally a matter of just turning tenants over.
Yeah.
And if you can work out cash for keys or something like that, let's just say you could get those rents up to market, which I think in a lot of these cities now, you're going to have a lot of 2-bedroom units or large 1-bedroom units. What are they going to go for? Like $2,500 a unit?
Yeah. If you were to redo these units, like a typical 2-bed in Burlington, $2,500 minimum.
Maybe even more.
Even more.
Okay, so let's say it was $2,700. Let's look at an optimistic scenario. $2,700 times 6. Now all of a sudden you've taken it from $6,000 to $16,200.
Yeah.
So now what does that justify? At $1.8 million, now that's an 8.5% cap. Now we're talking.
And that makes you laugh, right? Like
now
that
those
makes you
numbers
giddy.
are low. There is another way to look at this. They got the DCR working at 75%. And not advice to anyone because the market is still changing. Values have been coming down.
Cash for keys is becoming more difficult. I wouldn't say it's definitely possible. It's more difficult. And is it what you want to do in a market that's declining right now? Right? No, probably not.
I don't know. I still think turning tenants over is fantastic in this declining market because we know the upward pressure that's happening on rents.
But do you want to bank on your deal?
No.
Right.
You don't want to bank on your deal.
Your plan A, B, and C kind of thing, right?
I think that when you buy a property like this, isn't your whole nest egg. It can't be because you have to allow for the what if, and what if things don't go the way I want them to go. Yeah. I think that there's a really solid bet on a building like this where if you're coming in and you're seeing the rents are way low from a whole bunch of old tenants that had never turned over, you have a huge opportunity, even just not by doing much and just waiting and seeing 25% of your tenant base turn over every year. Or you put a little pressure on, maybe you say, hey, here's an N13, I'm going to renovate your unit, and then when they leave, you work out a deal with them to sign the one where they actually the N11.
Yeah. And I also want to talk about efficiencies quickly. There's a lot of things we can do here. Let's just say, for example, you're building, and typically it's what it is. These sixplexes are going to be a lot of older people in here, right? People that aren't going to be as interested for cash for keys. They've been in there for 15 years, 12 years, 10 years.
Once they're in that long,
it's their
house.
But here's the thing, right? That's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, yes, you need to get your income up. I get it. And eventually that will happen. But normally, like a building that has, let's say, all 6 units are all elderly people, they usually take care of the building very well.
Yeah.
We've been in one before.
Yeah.
We go in and we go, oh my gosh, this is like, even the hallways were so clean, and they were cleaned by the tenants.
Right.
Like the hallways clean.
So there's a little give and take there. You may not want everybody gone. Maybe there's an opportunity to keep, take the best tenant and make them, offer them a job, Hey, or, how do you feel about working for the place?
Slowly work on efficiencies in the building, right? So these are boiler. What if you went and started doing mini split systems in each of these?
So you can cut some of the...
you're upgrading the unit. If the tenant agrees to allow you to do it, you're good to go,
so
right?
You would
so now
be
you're putting
spending
AC
some money.
In, and you're getting rid of the gas, which is your cost, and actually having hydro.
Sure.
Right.
So there are some things you can do. I don't think that that's a full solution. I think that somewhere in the middle of maybe renovating a couple, getting some natural turnover, but this is not one where you want to come in with all private money and need to turn it over right away.
That's it.
Unless you have a knack for that and you know what you're getting into. Jake, with that said, would you be able to help somebody find a deal like this?
I would. There's a number of them on the market right now. We'll try to find a deal that's a little bit better than a 2.2 cap.
Yeah, we're not going to...
Let's just say that, but...
We're not going to set our sights on $6,000 for a building like this, I would say. I mean, I certainly wouldn't.
Yeah. We're going to try to find things. We're going to put systems in place. Maybe that's a JV, right? Maybe it's, hey, one partner brings in 500, another partner brings in 500, right? You get the first one under wraps, but it's a beautiful sixplex that is going to appreciate.
Yeah.
And you keep building that portfolio. Having 5 of these little sixplexes in an A market, well, that's a retirement plan right there.
Yeah.
You don't need 50. 5 of them cash flowing, let's say $4,000 a month, $5,000 a month.
Yeah, that'd be
minimum.
All right.
That'd
be all right.
Maybe that's not retirement, but that's definitely helping out.
I like that you put it that way. Yeah, it's part of a retirement plan. It's not the immediate future. It's the distant future in my mind. With that being said, folks, if you would like to find a deal like this one, you can click the link below this video and fill out Jake's opt-in form, which would put you on a list where somebody will get you in touch and help form a plan so that he can hopefully get you into something like this or something else that you have your eye on.
Exactly. And we do, we just want to do an intake call, learn a little bit about the investor. We try to keep it as casual as possible, right? Just a nice friendly phone call, see what we're doing, see what the plan is. And then if there is a deal that makes sense, we'd like to sit down and analyze it, right? And
awesome.
And we'll go from there.
Awesome. Okay, if you made it this far, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, tell somebody about this show, and leave us a comment. Really appreciate it. Thanks to you, and thanks, Jake. We'll see you again next week.